Imagine meeting someone who enters your life with a force so powerful, so magnetic, it feels as though the universe has conspired to bring your souls together. You feel seen, understood, and profoundly drawn to them, as if everything in your life has led up to this one moment. The connection is undeniable, a cosmic explosion of emotion, attraction, and intensity. But as quickly as it begins, it fractures, it hurts, and you're left questioning, why would the universe send me someone so powerful only to take them away? This experience isn't just a fleeting infatuation, it's a profound, life-altering encounter that leaves you reeling, wondering what went wrong. It's the type of relationship that seems destined to change everything, only to disappear just as quickly as it arrived. But what if the purpose of these intense, short-lived connections isn't to last forever? What if they're not meant to be a forever person at all? Today, we dive into that haunting question through the lens of Jungian psychology and the ancient wisdom echoed by mystics, philosophers, and psychologists. You might be surprised to learn that the relationships you're not meant to keep might just be the ones your soul most desperately needs. This isn't just another love story. This is the story of you, your shadow, your growth, and the invisible architecture of your psyche that shapes the people you attract and why you connect with them in the first place. Stay with me until the end, because the final insight might change the way you see every relationship you've ever had. Think back to someone you loved or thought you loved deeply, but for reasons beyond your control, it didn't work out. Maybe it was brief, intense, and unforgettable. But what if I told you that meeting them wasn't by chance? What if their role in your life was never to stay, but to awaken something deep within you? Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, believed that every person we encounter serves as a mirror. But not just any mirror, one that reflects not only who we are, but who we are not yet aware we are. Jung called this the shadow. The shadow is made up of unconscious aspects of ourselves that we repress, deny, or simply fail to recognize. Relationships like the one you're thinking of, those that are painful, intense, and often short-lived, are what Jung called shadow activators. These connections stir something inside us. It could be desire, insecurity, hope, or fear. They bring to light wounds we thought had healed, or even ones we didn't know existed. These relationships make us feel alive, but they also leave us destabilized, unmoored. You might wonder, why would the universe send me pain in the form of love? But perhaps what you've mistaken for pain is, in fact, revelation. When someone awakens your shadow, what is really happening is a confrontation with your inner self. It's a confrontation with the parts of you buried by childhood conditioning, by trauma, by fear, or even by society's expectations. In these moments, you're not just falling in love with another person, you're falling into yourself, facing parts of you that you've long neglected and perhaps even feared. The people who ignite this process aren't necessarily meant to be your forever partner, they're meant to be your mirror. They're sent to show you what you cannot see in yourself. They reveal the pieces you've been hiding, often without even realizing it. When we meet someone who seems to perfectly match our desires, fears, and needs, it often feels like fate has intervened, and we're seeing them as the answer to something we've been longing for. But in reality, we're not just seeing them, we're seeing ourselves, or rather, the parts of ourselves that we've never fully acknowledged. This phenomenon is what Carl Jung called projection. It's the unconscious act of attributing your unmet desires, unresolved fears, or unlived potential onto someone else. You don't simply see the person in front of you, you see a reflection of your own unmet needs and hidden desires projected onto them. Have you ever been drawn to someone who is emotionally unavailable, or perhaps someone who stirred parts of you that were both terrifying and thrilling at the same time? This is not love in the conventional sense, it is transformation. These people are not here to fulfill our fantasies, they are catalysts for awakening, for confronting the parts of ourselves we have long avoided. Imagine feeling inexplicably drawn to someone who pulls you in but also makes you feel unsteady. This isn't just chemistry. It's the work of archetypes, universal patterns of behavior that are part of the collective unconscious. According to Jung, the lover, the hero, the wounded healer, they all live within us. And when we encounter them in someone else, we awaken to these deeply ingrained aspects of our psyche. But the problem arises when we fail to see the person for who they truly are, not just the archetype we've placed upon them. Instead of seeing the real person, we see the fantasy, the rescuer, the savior, the one who will finally make us whole. This projection distorts reality, and it's a major reason why these intense relationships can end in heartbreak. These people aren't meant to stay forever. They are meant to reveal, not to fulfill the fantasy we have created. And when we fail to release this projection, the pain can be overwhelming, as we feel a sense of loss that goes beyond the individual. We lose the illusion we've created, the dream of who they were supposed to be in our lives. It's a gut-wrenching realization. Someone who you believed was destined to be a part of your life, someone you thought you couldn't live without, suddenly vanishes. It feels like the universe is cruel, sending you someone so powerful, so perfect, only to take them away. But what if the pain you feel isn't the end of your story, but the beginning of something much deeper? When these relationships end, it's not because you've failed or been punished, it's because you've been given the gift of revelation. What seems like the end of a connection is actually the beginning of a sacred process, the return to yourself. the moment of devastation, the heartbreak, the void. They forced you to confront parts of yourself that you may have ignored or repressed, because let's be honest, there are parts of us that we wouldn't look at unless someone else forced us to see them. These emotional chisels carve out our character, sculpt our soul, and help us grow into a more complete version of ourselves. The relationships that challenge us, that destabilize us, that break us open, they are not here to destroy us, but to reveal us. In these moments when the relationship falls apart, the question shifts from why did this happen to me, to what did this awaken in me? The pain, the loss, the longing, they are invitations to look inward, to ask ourselves the hard questions we've avoided for years. Why do I give my power away? Why do I seek validation from those who withhold it? Why do I feel unworthy when I am not chosen? By sitting with these questions, not in blame or resentment, but with curiosity and compassion, you begin to reclaim the fragmented pieces of your psyche. You begin to understand that the person who left didn't ruin you, they revealed you. This is where the real work begins. This isn't just about mourning the loss of the relationship. It's about understanding the lessons that were hidden in the pain, the growth that could only come through confrontation with the parts of you that had been dormant. When we think about relationships, especially intense ones that seem to ignite something deep within us, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that their purpose is to make us happy. We often seek out relationships with the expectation that they will provide the love, stability, and connection we crave. But according to Jungian analyst James Hollis, the purpose of relationships is not to bring us happiness, it is to bring us transformation. These transformative relationships are not meant to fulfill our fantasies of a perfect partner or a fairy tale ending. Instead, they are designed to help us grow, to challenge us, and to push us into deeper awareness. The universe doesn't send us people just to fulfill our needs, but to ignite the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming whole. You see, when someone enters your life and makes a profound impact, they don't just change your world, they push you to face the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. They trigger feelings, memories, and wounds that may have remained dormant for years. While we may initially feel the rush of infatuation and connection, the real work begins when the relationship ends. It's not the end of your story, it's the beginning of self-discovery. When the intense emotions have settled and the pain of loss starts to fade, you're left with a choice: to continue clinging to the fantasy of what could have been, or to use this experience as a catalyst for change. The people the universe sends into your life are not the ones meant to stay forever. They are the ones who crack you open, not to break you, but to reveal who you truly are beneath the layers of conditioning, trauma, and fear. In their leaving, they leave behind the space for you to reconnect with your true self. At first, heartbreak feels like an ending, a closing of a chapter, a severing of something that once felt so alive. The universe has sent you someone who seemed to complete you, only for them to leave, and now you're left to pick up the pieces. The pain is real, and it feels like the loss of something irreplaceable. But what if the universe isn't cruel for sending you someone you can't keep? What if instead it is intentional? In those moments of heartache when it feels like your world has been shattered, it's crucial to remember that the devastation you feel is not the end, it's the beginning of something far more sacred. The loss isn't a punishment, it's an initiation. The person who walked away didn't come to break you, they came to reveal you. Heartbreak is a form of transformation. The pain you feel, the emptiness, the longing, it is all part of the rebirth. It's a return to yourself, a shedding of illusions that no longer serve you. Let's face it, there are parts of ourselves we wouldn't confront unless we were pushed. We may have been avoiding certain truths about who we are or what we need, but when a relationship ends, especially one that has stirred something deep inside us, it forces us to face these hidden truths. Why do I cling to relationships that aren't right for me? Why do I fear being alone? And what does that fear reveal about my own sense of self-worth? These are questions we often avoid, but in the stillness of heartbreak, we are invited to answer them. This is when the true healing begins. Instead of focusing on the absence of the other person, we begin to look inward. We recognize that this loss is not the end of love. It is its most transformative expression. Heartbreak cracks open our ego, softens the parts of us that are hard and rigid, and invites our soul to rise. When a relationship ends, especially one that has profoundly shaken us, we're often left with a series of questions. These aren't just questions about the other person or why they left, but about ourselves, about the deeper layers of who we are, and why we find ourselves in these emotional situations. In the aftermath of heartbreak, we begin to ask questions that perhaps we've been avoiding for years. Why do I give my power away? Why do I crave validation from those who withhold it? Why do I feel unworthy when someone doesn't choose me? These are the questions that often arise when we sit with our pain, not in blame but in curiosity. And though they may be uncomfortable, they hold the keys to healing. It's easy to focus on the other person, to point fingers, and to dwell on what they did wrong. But the real transformation comes when we turn the mirror onto ourselves. We must ask why we allow ourselves to remain in situations where we feel small or unchosen. What part of us is still seeking approval or acceptance from external sources when what we really need is to look inward and provide that validation to ourselves? These questions, though difficult, are essential for growth. They help us reclaim the parts of our psyche that have been fragmented. We begin to understand that the person who left didn't ruin us. They revealed the parts of us that we have long ignored. They illuminated the shadow aspects of ourselves that we hadn't been ready to face. In many ways, the end of a relationship is an invitation to finally face these truths. It's a chance to reclaim our power, to take responsibility for our own emotional landscape. And when we approach these questions with compassion, we begin to reclaim the parts of ourselves that have been neglected, rejected, or forgotten. It is this inner work, the willingness to ask the tough questions, that leads us to self-empowerment and deep healing. And once we start doing that, we no longer look at the person who left as a villain. Instead, we see them as a catalyst for the change we so desperately needed. We've all been there the moment we meet someone and feel as though we've found the one, the person we've been waiting for. They seem to fit into our lives perfectly, and we begin to believe that this is the person we're meant to be with forever. But what if that feeling isn't a sign that they are the one, but rather a projection of our own desires and unmet needs? The truth is, many of us cling to the illusion of the one because it gives us a sense of certainty and hope. We want to believe that there's a perfect person out there who will complete us, fill the gaps in our lives, and provide the love we've always dreamed of. But the danger of this belief is that it sets us up for disappointment. When the relationship ends, as many do, we feel as though we've lost something irreplaceable. In reality, the person who we thought was the one was never meant to be our forever partner. They were meant to wake us up. They were meant to serve as a mirror, showing us the parts of ourselves that we have ignored or denied. They may have been a catalyst for transformation, but not because they were perfect, because they helped us confront the most difficult aspects of our own psyche. The pain of loss is not about losing the one. It's about losing the fantasy we created around them. This is where the real work begins. The process of letting go is not just about releasing someone else from our lives. It's about releasing the fantasy of what we thought the relationship could be. When we let go of the illusion that someone else can complete us, we open ourselves up to the possibility of finding love that is authentic, not based on projections or fantasies. The love we seek isn't found outside of us, it is within. And once we learn to love ourselves fully, we can begin to attract healthier, more fulfilling relationships that are grounded in mutual respect, understanding, and growth. You've probably heard of the term soul contract, the idea that before we are born, our souls choose certain people to meet during our lives. These people aren't necessarily meant to stay with us forever. Sometimes, they come into our lives for a specific purpose, a purpose that transcends our traditional understanding of love and companionship. Though Jung may not have used the term soul contract, his theories around archetypes and the collective unconscious align closely with this concept. Jung believed that we carry within us universal symbols and patterns, archetypes that shape our experiences and interactions with others. These archetypes, such as the lover, the child, the hero, and the wounded healer, are part of the collective unconscious and live within all of us. When we meet someone who feels like home, despite the chaos they bring, it's not simply a coincidence. It's an encounter with an archetype, a symbolic force that is meant to stir something deep within us. These people come into our lives not to stay, but to teach us vital lessons that are essential for our spiritual growth. Jung believed that the relationships we experience are part of a much larger myth that plays out in the collective unconscious. Your heartbreak, your longing, your joy, and your pain are all part of this greater narrative. And while your pain is yours to experience, it is also a reflection of the universal patterns that connect us all. When we meet someone who awakens these archetypal forces within us, it is often a deeply symbolic experience. We may feel as though we've known them forever, or that our connection is destined by fate. But the deeper truth is that these encounters are often meant to show us hidden aspects of ourselves, the parts of our psyche that have been repressed or denied. The person you were drawn to, even if they didn't stay, may have held the key to unlocking something sacred within you. But here's the paradox. The stronger the archetypal pull, the more likely the relationship is to collapse under its own weight. Why? Because archetypes are not real people, they are larger-than-life symbols that belong to the realm of myth. When we project these symbols onto real people, we create distorted expectations and illusions that inevitably lead to disappointment. These relationships aren't meant to last forever, they are meant to be transcended. And when we fail to release the projection, we suffer. The key to growth is to let go of the fantasy and embrace the deeper lessons these relationships offer. Only then can we truly heal and integrate the lessons they've taught us. Imagine meeting someone who shakes you to your core. The connection is electric, thrilling, and almost otherworldly. You feel as though this person holds the key to something profound within you. Yet at the same time, you are left feeling unsteady, as if the ground beneath you is constantly shifting. This isn't just chemistry, it's an archetypal encounter. Jung spoke of archetypes, universal symbols and patterns that exist in the collective unconscious. These archetypes, such as the lover, the hero, and the trickster, are not just abstract concepts, they are deeply embedded in our psyche. When we meet someone who embodies one of these archetypes, we are engaging with a part of ourselves that has been activated by their presence. This person isn't just who they appear to be, they represent something much larger. They are an archetypal force, a symbol that triggers a profound internal shift. The encounter may feel familiar, like you've known them forever, or as if they are part of a greater destiny. But the truth is, they are not simply here to love you, they are here to help you discover something essential about yourself. These relationships are not accidents, they are rituals in disguise. The universe sends these individuals into our lives not to fulfill our desires or expectations, but to awaken us to deeper truths. These encounters are meant to challenge us, to push us out of our comfort zones, and to force us to confront parts of our psyche that we may have hidden away. However, there is a challenge. Because archetypes are so powerful, when we meet someone who embodies them, it's easy to mistake them for the ideal partner, the one who will complete us, save us, or fulfill all our emotional needs. But this is where the danger lies. The more we project these archetypal qualities onto the other person, the more likely we are to distort the reality of who they truly are. The person you meet may hold the key to awakening certain parts of yourself, but they cannot bear the weight of being your savior. No one can. This is why these relationships often burn bright and fade quickly. They are meant to transform, not to endure forever. When we let go of the projections and see the person for who they truly are, we are left with the lesson they came to teach us. The pull of an archetype is magnetic, intense, and often uncontrollable. When we meet someone who stirs this deep, primordial part of our psyche, it can feel like fate has intervened. There's an overwhelming sense that this connection is destined, that this person is the key to something larger. Yet, the irony is that the stronger the archetypal pull, the more likely the relationship is to unravel. Why does this happen? Because archetypes exist in the realm of myth and symbol, not in the practical world of human relationships. Archetypes are larger than life. They are the foundational structures that shape our understanding of love, power, healing, and transformation. But when we project these grand, abstract forces onto a real person, the result is often a distorted perception of who they are. Take, for example, the hero archetype. When you meet someone who embodies the hero, you may see them as your savior, the one who will rescue you from your fears or difficulties. The lover archetype may feel like the perfect soulmate, a person who completes you, but no human can carry the weight of these projections. They cannot be your savior, your perfect lover, or your one true source of happiness. When we fail to release these projections, we are left with a fantasy that can never be fulfilled. The disillusionment that follows is inevitable. What once felt electric and destined can suddenly seem empty and unfulfilling. The person who once seemed perfect now feels impossibly flawed, and the connection that felt like destiny begins to crumble under the weight of our expectations. The problem lies not in the other person, but in the projection itself. We have placed them on a pedestal, assigning them roles and expectations that no human being can live up to. The moment we see the other person as they truly are, the illusion collapses, and the relationship often ends. But this collapse is not the end. It is the beginning of transformation. The moment we let go of the fantasy and accept the person as they are, we free ourselves from the grip of the archetype. We stop chasing an illusion and begin to see the truth of the connection. Only then can we grow and heal from the experience, understanding that the archetype was never meant to be fulfilled by one person. It was meant to teach us something far deeper about our own psyche. Love is often romanticized as the ultimate goal, something to be sought, cherished, and nurtured. We are conditioned to believe that love is about finding someone to complete us, someone who will fill the void within us and bring us happiness. But the real truth about love, especially the kind that comes with intense relationships, is that its true purpose isn't happiness, it's transformation. Psychologist Robert A. Johnson, a student of Carl Jung, wrote in his book that falling in love is a form of sacred madness. It's a kind of madness that opens our eyes to the divine in another person. We see them as an ideal, someone who holds all the answers to our longings and dreams. But the real work doesn't begin until that projection fades. Once the initial euphoria wears off and the relationship shifts, we are faced with the choice: continue chasing the illusion or embrace the reality. It is at this moment, the moment when the projection fades, that the real opportunity for growth arises. Love becomes a transformative force, not because it fulfills all our desires, but because it strips away the illusions we've clung to. As the fantasy fades, we are left with a choice: to deepen the connection authentically or to allow it to dissolve, having fulfilled its symbolic role in our lives. The people who come into our lives and shake us to our core, they aren't here to stay. They are here to transform us. The love we feel is meant to awaken us, to challenge us to look deeper into ourselves and confront the shadows we've hidden. They don't complete us. They force us to see what we have been avoiding, what we need to heal and grow. The relationships that seem the most intense, the ones that leave us feeling the most vulnerable, are often the ones that push us toward individuation, the process of becoming whole. This process isn't comfortable, nor is it easy. It requires us to face the darkest parts of ourselves, the parts that we've ignored or repressed. But through this confrontation, we are able to integrate these aspects of ourselves, becoming more authentic, more self-aware, and more whole. Love, in its most transformative form, is not about seeking happiness in another person, it's about seeking growth within ourselves. When we fall deeply for someone, it's easy to place them on a pedestal. We project our desires, our needs, and even our fantasies onto them, believing they will fulfill something that has been missing in our lives. These projections may come from unresolved childhood wounds, unmet emotional needs, or our own deep desires for connection and love. The person we're drawn to is no longer just who they are, they become the embodiment of everything we want or fear, and we fail to see them as they truly are. Jung's concept of projection is key here. He believed that when we project unconscious parts of ourselves onto others, we are seeing not them, but a reflection of what we desire, fear, or deny in ourselves. The lover we crave, the hero who will save us, the parent who will give us the love we never received, these are not real people. They are archetypal roles that we cast others into, often unconsciously. But the truth is, no person can carry the weight of being someone else's savior or perfect partner. When we place these projections onto someone, we are setting them up for failure, because no human being can fulfill the larger-than-life roles we assign to them. The result is often disappointment, frustration, and heartbreak. To heal, we must learn to reclaim these projections. This means taking responsibility for the parts of ourselves that we have projected onto others. Instead of blaming the other person for not fulfilling our needs, we must look inward and ask, what do I need to heal in myself? Why am I seeking this validation from someone else instead of from within? The process of reclaiming projections is about understanding that these qualities we see in others are reflections of what we are capable of owning within ourselves. The lover we sought externally is a call to embrace our own capacity for love. The hero we wanted to save us is a prompt to awaken the strength and resilience within ourselves. When we release the projections, we stop expecting others to fulfill the roles we have placed on them, and we begin to see them for who they truly are. This is where authentic connection begins, when we stop seeing others as mere reflections of our own unconscious needs, and instead engage with them as real, whole individuals. By reclaiming these projections, we take back our power. We stop outsourcing our healing to others and begin the work of self-love and self-integration. Only then can we transform our relationships from sources of pain into opportunities for growth. When a relationship ends, especially one that has deeply impacted us, it's tempting to blame the other person. We might tell ourselves that if they hadn't left, we would still be happy, or that something was wrong with us that caused them to walk away. We focus on what we've lost, and the heartache can feel overwhelming. But what if the real transformation lies not in seeking closure from the other person, but in turning inward? Jung's concept of individuation teaches us that true growth doesn't come from external validation, or from finding someone else to complete us. It comes from looking within, from confronting the unconscious parts of ourselves that need healing. We are not here to find someone to save us, we are here to become whole on our own. The end of a relationship is the perfect moment to begin this inward journey. Instead of continuing to chase the person who left, we must ask ourselves, what has this relationship taught me about my needs? What fears, desires, or insecurities have been stirred up by this person's presence in my life? These questions aren't meant to keep us stuck in pain or blame, they are meant to guide us toward deeper self-understanding. As we sit with these questions, we begin to reclaim the parts of ourselves that have been neglected, repressed, or wounded. The longing we feel for the other person is often a longing for something we need to give ourselves. The love, security, and validation we seek from others must first be given by us to ourselves. Only when we learn to love ourselves fully can we begin to love others in a way that is grounded in authenticity and mutual respect, not in need or desperation. The real work of transformation is not in moving on from someone, but in moving into the parts of ourselves that we have been avoiding. It requires courage, patience, and a willingness to sit with the discomfort of the unknown. But this inward journey is where true healing takes place. It's where we start to build a stronger, more resilient sense of self, one that is not dependent on external sources for validation or fulfillment. The heartache we experience after a breakup is not the end, it's an invitation to look inward, to embrace the process of self-integration, and to begin the journey of becoming the person we were always meant to be. This is where true transformation begins. In the aftermath of a deeply emotional relationship, especially one that has ended in pain, the lingering question is often, why does it feel so real, so irreplaceable, if it wasn't meant to last? The truth is, these relationships are not here to complete us, but to liberate us. They help us shed the illusions we've been clinging to, forcing us to confront the parts of ourselves that we have long avoided. The greatest liberation comes when we stop seeking completion outside of ourselves and instead begin to seek it within. We realize that we were never incompletely unaware of the fullness we already possess. We've been looking for love, acceptance, and validation in the wrong places, projecting our unmet needs onto others. But true freedom comes when we stop outsourcing our healing and begin to integrate our own wholeness. This journey is not easy. It requires us to move beyond the fantasy of what we thought love should be and to embrace the reality of who we truly are. Individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires us to reclaim the lost parts of ourselves, to take back the projections we've placed on others, and to heal the wounds that have been holding us back from embracing our true selves. When we are able to see these relationships for what they truly are, transformative experiences, not personal failures, we shift from victimhood to ownership. Instead of feeling like the universe has wronged us by sending us someone who didn't stay, we recognize that they were sent to awaken us, to help us face the parts of ourselves that were buried in darkness. The final insight is this: the person who you were not meant to be with was never the destination, they were the door. A door that led you back to yourself, to your own potential, to the love and wholeness that you've been seeking all along. You didn't fail, you didn't waste your time, you didn't misread the signs. You experienced a soul contract fulfilling its purpose. And now that purpose is complete, you are free not just from the person but from the illusion that love must look a certain way to be real. Now you get to write a new story, one where love is chosen from wholeness, not from hunger. Where your worth is not tied to who stays but to who you choose to be, regardless of whether anyone else is by your side. This is the liberation that Carl Jung pointed to. When you make the unconscious conscious, you stop repeating the same lessons. You stop mistaking fate for choice, and you begin to live with clarity, depth, and presence. So, as you move forward, remember, the most intense relationships in your life, the ones that left you questioning everything, were never accidents. They were patterns, reflections of your unconscious, teaching you to embrace what is hidden, to face your fears, and to become who you were always meant to be. As you step into your new story, let go of the illusions, embrace your true self, and open your heart again, not because you need someone else to save you, but because you are finally whole enough to share your soul. Not to fill a void, but to amplify your light.